Welcome back, it's me, Lou. Okay, before we begin, I just want to give you a fair warning. This is not going to be an unboxing and full review. Unfortunately, we're going to review these strictly mint on card, so we're not going to take a look at the articulation or anything like that. I saw these hanging on my wall the other day, and I thought it'd be fun just to do a quick video on them and just talk about them. It's been a while since I've purchased a Marvel Select figure. And in some ways, I'm just kind of like homesick for this style of toy. So I just wanted to kind of hang out with my toys for a little bit and just talk about them. So yeah, there's not going to be an unboxing. We're not going to go over the articulation. These are older figures, so chances are you can just jump onto YouTube and just seek out a full review from like another content creator. All right, so with that being said, let's get started. So, as I've established already, these were hanging on my wall, and I walked past them the other day, and I'm like, man, these are some awesome looking figures. I should just, take the time and just like hang out with them for a little bit and, become reacquainted with, these precious toys, especially since they're forever encased in their like cardboard plastic prisons. And I thought it'd be fun just to share this experience, with you. So, I don't know, let's get started. First off, let's take a look at Spidey. I think Venom's the one I'm more interested in, but we'll save that for last. Alright, so what we have here, we have Marvel Select Spider-Man from Homecoming. So this was the first Disney MCU Spider-Man, and this was a Disney Store exclusive. Now you'll have to forgive me here because this box is gigantic. If you collect Marvel Select figures, you'll know that these 7-inch action figures come in these giant blister cards. The plastic bubbles ginormous. The cardboard's like ridiculously excessive, but what you do get with the action figure, you get this awesome 7-inch scale action figure. It comes with like a display base, so you can like have its own like diorama. So you really feel like you're getting your money's worth with this action figure. These action figures generally retailed for about $25 US, 31 Canadian. Right, so the Disney stores in my area, in the Chicagoland area, I believe most of them are closed. They happened during the pandemic. I don't know if any of them survived, but the one at my local mall unfortunately closed down last year. And for me, that was kind of my primary way of getting some of the Marvel Select stuff. I do have an FYE in my mall, and that's... If you're familiar with FYE, it stands for Your Entertainment. They specialize in pop culture. They sell DVDs, CDs, clothing, anything that's trendy. They always have them. And occasionally they'll get Marvel Select stuff. So, if you're in the hunt for Marvel Select, this might be something you might have to hunt down online. This is a much older action figure. This came out back in... if I could find a date, 2018. So this figure's, almost 4 years old, roughly, give or take a year. So yeah, this is based off of Spider-Man from the Homecoming film, starring actor Tom Holland. As you can see here, the likeness is pretty well done. It looks like Tom Holland from a few years back. I always like the Marvel Select figures because I always felt that the sculpting, it's on a different level than the Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends, on the other hand, they're a lot more durable, they're a lot more playable. Marvel Select, even though they have all the points of articulation that you'd want, and like the additional accessories like the multiple hands, they always felt a little bit... They felt like they weren't meant to be played with. They always kind of felt more like display pieces. They felt a little bit more on the, not necessarily fragile, but they didn't feel as durable as like a Marvel Legends. This was a figure that when I saw it at the Disney Store, I really wanted. And I believe this was a later release because, Homecoming came out much earlier than 2018, I think. And I remember, I think the initial figure of this actually had the masked head, whereas this one doesn't have the masked head. And this is me being very backwards, but I kind of prefer my superheroes without the mask. So anytime there's like an Iron Man figure or a Spider-Man figure where I could swap out the head for the actual actor, I always like, I'd rather have Tom Holland than actually the Spider-Man head. I know it sounds weird, but I don't know. That's just how I am. So the display base is kind of cool. It's kind of like a rooftop chimney, It's neat with that the Marvel Select stuff that they really keep the collector in mind, and they know that it's an older collector, and chances are, you're going to want to display this at your desk at work or on your shelf in your den. Yeah, nice sculpting, great detail. There's a nice texture on his uniform. And on the back of the box, it gives you an idea of like how you get to set it up. Here's the Tom Holland Spider-Man on top of the rooftop. And for those of you who don't necessarily dabble in Marvel Select, let me grab a Marvel Legends figure just for a size comparison. Alright, so here's an MCU Marvel Legends. I believe this is from Endgame Spider-Man. And my camera's not going to capture it very well, but it's a considerably smaller figure. As you can see here, he pretty much just comes up to his chin. So yeah, I mean, Marvel Legends, you're looking at a roughly 6-inch scale action figure, where Marvel Select are kind of like, they kind of fall within that 7-inch scale. So that's Spidey. And over here we have Venom. Alright, so this is a Marvel Select Venom figure. I believe this also came out in 2018. This one was a Disney Store exclusive, as you can see here. And this is probably my favorite Venom figure. This was a re-release. So this figure came out previously, a couple years beforehand. I want to say that what makes this figure different than the first release is that it came with different heads. And I think some of these accessories, like the tendrils, might have been new to this figure. Because I think these were more reactionary to the Sony Venom movie that came out. I think. It's been a couple of years. But yeah, this is a great figure. I love the sculpting on this guy. The sculpting on this, it kind of feels a little dated because it feels like it was sculpted like in the late 90s or early 2000s. It kind of has that, post-reactionary McFarlane toy look. If you grew up in the 90s, you'll remember that as soon as the McFarlane toys hit, it felt like almost every toy company had to like up their game in terms of the sculpting and the paint application. So this kind of feels very reactionary to that, even though this figure is like, post 20 years from like when McFarlane toys kind of like really hit their prime. So yeah, this is a great figure. I love the sculpting on it. I love the crazy heads. Like this one has a crazy tongue sticking out of it. Same with this one. Multiple hands. He had the different options. He has the fist. The stock hands are pretty much just elongated fingers with the claws. On the back of the box, some nice fig photography. Gives you an idea of the figure and what it looks like. Alright, so fortunately for you, I do have the previous release of the figure on hand loose, so we can at least take a look at the articulation. Alright, so here is one of the earlier releases of this exact same figure. As you can see, this one came with the tooth grin head. I don't remember if it came with these other ones. I took all the accessories that came with this guy and threw them in a baggie, and they're sitting in the bottom of a tote right now. But at the very least, I was able to grab this guy. But as you can see here, he shares the same mold as this one. This is pretty much, this guy here was pretty much a re-release of this figure. They pretty much just upped his game with the more accessories and the different heads. And I think the tendrils might have been new. But yeah, I love the sculpting on him. You know, let's get up close and personal with Venom. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. The paint application and the sculpting is superb. This really feels like something that was sculpted in the like 90s or early 2000s, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I think, you know, during that time period, especially, you know, post you know, the debut of like the McFarlane and the Spawn line, you know, there was some amazing artistry going on in the toy world. You know, everyone had to up their ante and up their game, and this Venom figure, I think whoever designed it, whoever sculpted it, I think they did a beautiful job with it. The one thing that really, really hurts this figure is the articulation. The articulation feels very dated. Like his head, you know, it's on a ball joint. It's all right. You know, it has a little bit more mobility than you'd expect. You know, you could rotate it, but he can't necessarily look down. He can't really look up. The arms could rotate and they could go outward. And there is a bicep swivel. Unfortunately, there's only single pinned elbows, so you don't get like the full range of motion in terms of like being able to like bend his forearm. There's a socket here for the additional accessories that plug in. The cut on his elbow isn't very clean either. You know, when his arm is straight, it's very clean, almost seamless. But the minute you bend him at the elbow, you know, it's very antiquated in its design. You know, it's just plain flat, and it's not like they have that kind of like elbow cap at the end of it. His wrists kind of just swivel. He has a cut below his chest, mid-torso, and it's kind of pointless because even though it's there, the range of motion is very minimal. He doesn't want to crunch forward. He doesn't want to arch back. There's not a whole lot of tilt on him, nor swivel. But he does have a waist swivel here, and you can rotate it. The leg design is also very antiquated. This kind of feels like early 2000s. You know, he could kick up, he could kick out, but it's kind of weird. It's almost like over-engineered right there. He has a lower thigh cut right there above the knee. I prefer the higher thigh cut because I think it looks a little bit more seamless. When you cut it down here, the muscle gets broken up and it looks weird. Unfortunately, this guy only has a single pinned knee. Let's get this to focus. I just want to focus. Yeah, so this guy's knee doesn't do a whole lot. It just bends like that. Ankle articulation also very limited. You know, just do this. But again, the sculpting on this guy, I think, is amazing. I think that's one of the strong points with the Marvel Select line. I think their sculpting is second to none. The durability and the playability of their figures, you know, I think that's questionable, but the artistry and the craftsmanship involved in just making a beautiful figure is really top-notch with the Marvel Select line. I think that's one of the things I like most about McFarlane Toys. You know, McFarlane, they're doing the DC Multiverse, Mortal Kombat. There's their Spawn figures, the Witcher figures, their Warhammer figures, Princess Bride, Batman. You know, the list goes on and on. But the one thing I do appreciate about McFarlane's more recent foray into the toy, you know, the action figure stuff is that their sculpting and their detail, it's at this level. You know, it feels very premium. It looks very premium, but at the same time with the McFarlane stuff, they kind of have that articulation and that durability. Whereas the Marvel Select, like this guy, he looks pretty, but in terms of playability and, you know, getting him into poses, it's very, very limited. You know, some of the articulation's there. The range of motion isn't necessarily as, you know, forgiving or as lenient as like a Marvel Legends. So you're not going to get the same kind of crazy poses. But in terms of just like, you know, something to like marvel at, you know, no pun intended, this guy is amazing. And same with like the rest of the Marvel Select line. You know, the Marvel Select stuff's been around for a long time. You know, some of their more recent figures, especially some of the more recent MCU stuff, you know, the articulation's gotten a lot better, but I think where they really shine is in their sculpting. Like, you know, just look at that figure. You know, I'm very hard pressed to find a Marvel Legends figure that looks this good. You know, I mean, it's debatable, but you know, I do have a bias towards this. And I mean, just look at that Venom. It's awesome. So yeah, you know, I got to share this little moment with you. I just want to pull these toys out and just like, you know, reacquaint myself with the Marvel Select line of toys. You know, my Disney store closed down last year, so I haven't been really making any trips to the mall to the FYE. So it's been a while since I've seen a Marvel Select figure up close and personal. So are these figures something, you know, that you'd be interested in? It depends. You know, if you're dabbling in Marvel Legends, and you're happy with that, I think the Marvel Select stuff might be an easy pass. You know, they're a slightly larger scale, so they might not fit in with the rest of your display. But if you're also more of a character collector, like if you just collect Spider-Man figures or Venom figures in particular, you might, you know, want to explore these options. I think the Marvel Select stuff is high quality. You know, you're really getting your money's worth with these guys. You know, for like this guy being $25, I do think you get a lot of bang for your buck with this. You know, you get the multiple accessories, you get the diorama on the base. Likewise for Venom, you know, there's so many different options for displaying them, depending on your mood. You know, you can give them the crazy faces, the perplexed face. You could give them the crazy tendrils, the different hands. So yeah, love these figures a lot. They're awesome. Alright, so with that being said, let's close out this video. Once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for your continued likes, comments, and support. I greatly appreciate it. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I will see you at the next one. Alright, later.